The smell of burning canvas and oil paint drifted through my bedroom window like a declaration of war. I didn't need to look outside to know what Marcus was doing. The crackling of the fire, the smoke curling up into the October evening, and his drunken laughter told me everything. He was burning my father's paintings. Garbage art from your dead dad. Marcus shouted loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Taking up space in my garage for 3 years. Should have done this the day I moved in. I stayed at my desk, calmly finishing the email to my insurance company. The timestamp would be important later. 7:47 p.m. October 15th. Fire reported. Claim initiated. Evidence attached. Through the window, I could see Mom standing by the back door, arms crossed, watching her husband of 18 months destroy the last physical pieces of my father. She wasn't stopping him. She never did. "Elena," Marcus called to her. "Bring me another beer. We're having a bonfire. Burning all this worthless crap your ex-husband left behind." My father, David Morrow, had been dead for 3 years. Heart attack at 45 while painting in his studio. He'd been an artist his whole life. Not famous, not successful by conventional standards, but dedicated to his craft. The 23 paintings in our garage were all I had left of him. Or rather, they had been in the garage until this afternoon when I carefully photographed each one, documenting their condition, signature, and the small authentication marks that most people wouldn't notice. The paintings Marcus was now burning with such glee. My phone buzzed. A text from Garrett Knox, the insurance investigator I'd been working with. On my way. ETA 20 minutes. Have fire department on standby. Do not attempt to stop the destruction. I texted back. He's already started. At least 6 paintings so far. Perfect. Document everything. I pulled out my phone and started recording through the window. Marcus had built quite the bonfire in our backyard fire pit, feeding it with what he thought was worthless canvas and wood. Mom had brought him his beer and was now sitting in a lawn chair, scrolling through her phone while her husband destroyed my inheritance. "Jessica." Marcus yelled up at my window. "Get down here and watch. This is what happens to garbage in the Thompson house." Thompson, his last name, which he'd insisted Mom take when they married. He'd wanted me to take it too, but I'd refused. I was Jessica Morrow, daughter of David Morrow, and no amount of bullying would change that. I didn't respond to his taunting. Instead, I continued recording as he threw another canvas onto the fire. That one hurt to watch. It was the landscape of Monterey Bay that Dad had painted on my 13th birthday. We'd spent the whole day at the beach, and he captured the light on the water perfectly. 200 paintings, Marcus slurred, though it was only 23. 200 pieces of amateur trash. Your dad couldn't sell a painting to save his life. He wasn't wrong about the selling part. Dad had never sold a single painting while he was alive. He'd worked as a graphic designer to pay the bills and painted for the love of it. What Marcus didn't know, what nobody except me and a very specific appraiser in San Francisco knew, was that my father had been someone else entirely. The truth had come to me slowly through a series of discoveries after his death. First, it was the way certain art collectors reacted when they saw his work at the estate sale I tried to organize. The way they'd exchange glances and quickly leave. Then it was the encrypted files on his computer that took me 2 years to crack. Finally, it was the letter from his friend in London that arrived 6 months ago. "Your father was the most brilliant artist of his generation," the letter had said. That he chose anonymity over fame was both his greatest gift to the art world and his greatest curse. Guard his remaining works carefully. They are worth more than you know. The letter was signed simply RL. It had taken me 3 months to figure out that RL was Robert Langley, one of Banksy's early collaborators and authenticators. You see, my father wasn't just David Morrow, failed artist and weekend painter. He was also Moreau, the mysterious street artist whose works had appeared in major cities throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. The same Moreau whose authenticated pieces now sold for millions at auction. The same Moreau who had disappeared completely in 2008, the year I was born, and my father decided that being a dad was more important than being famous. "Jessica, you pathetic little mouse," Marcus shouted. "Your dad was a nobody, a nothing, just like you." I kept recording. The insurance company would want to hear that. Character evidence, they called it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was the appraiser, Dr. Catherine Vessels. confirming authentication certificates were filed with Lloyd's of London last month. Each painting insured for average market value of authenticated mural works. Total coverage, $4.2 million. I smiled despite the smoke now filling my room. Marcus had no idea what he was doing. More importantly, he had no idea what I'd done. Last month, after finally getting the DNA authentication on Dad's paint samples that proved he was Moreau, I'd done 3 things. First, I'd had each painting professionally photographed and authenticated. Second, I'd insured them for their full value. Third, I'd waited. I knew Marcus would eventually destroy them. He'd been threatening to for months, ever since he'd moved in and decided that everything about my father's existence offended him. The paintings in the garage, the photos on the walls, even the wind chimes Dad had made. Marcus wanted it all gone. Mom had slowly given in to most of his demands. The photos came down. The wind chimes disappeared. But the paintings had remained in the garage, protected by my threats to call the police if he touched them. I was 17 then, and he backed off. Now I was 18, legal adult, owner of my father's estate, and fully capable of making my own insurance claims. Through the window, I watched Marcus throw another painting onto the fire. The oils in the paint created green and blue flames that danced against the evening sky. It would have been beautiful if it wasn't so calculated. 15 minutes out, Garrett texted, "Local PD is with me." The police? That was a bonus I hadn't expected, but it made sense. $4 million in property damage wasn't just an insurance claim, it was a felony. Marcus had moved on to the larger canvases now, the ones that barely fit in the fire pit. He was having to break them apart first, snapping the frames with his boots and tearing the canvas. Mom had stopped watching, gone inside to make dinner as if this was just another Tuesday night. "Hey Thompson," our neighbor, Mr. Curtis, called over the fence. "That smoke is getting pretty thick." "Mind your own business, old man," Marcus shouted back. "This is my property. I'll burn whatever I want." Actually, it wasn't his property. The house was still in my mother's name alone, a detail from the prenup she'd insisted on after her experience with my father's death and estate complications. Marcus had no legal claim to the house or anything in it, including the paintings he was destroying. My phone rang. It was Garrett. "Jessica, I'm 5 minutes out. Can you confirm the subject is still actively destroying the paintings?" "Yes," I said, watching Marcus wrestle with a particularly large canvas. "He's burned approximately 15 of the 23 paintings so far." "And you have documentation of your ownership?" "Everything. The will, the estate transfer, the authentication certificates, the insurance policies. It's all in a cloud folder I shared with you." "Excellent. And he was informed these paintings belong to you?" "Multiple times in writing. The last email was 3 days ago." There was a pause. "Jessica, I have to ask, why didn't you move them somewhere safe if you knew he might do this?" "Where would I move them? I'm 18, living at home, no money for storage units. My mom sided with him. I had nowhere safe to put them." I paused, then added the part that would matter in court. "Besides, he said if I moved them, he'd kick me out. I have that in text messages too." "Smart girl. Sit tight. This is about to get very interesting." I watched Marcus throw the last painting onto the fire. 23 works by one of the most important street artists of the modern era, reduced to ash and smoke. If they'd been real. The paintings Marcus was burning were forgeries. Good forgeries. I painted them myself over the last month, copying my father's style as best I could. The real paintings were in a climate-controlled storage unit in San Francisco, moved there piece by piece over the last 6 weeks. The authentication process had required the originals, but the insurance photos had been carefully taken to be ambiguous about certain details. Marcus was destroying evidence of his own crime, not realizing the evidence was fake and the crime was still real. The doorbell rang at 8:23 p.m. I heard Mom's surprised voice, then footsteps on the stairs. My bedroom door opened and she stood there, face pale. "Jessica, there are police officers here, and someone from an insurance company. They want to talk to Marcus." I stood up slowly, tucking my phone with all its recorded evidence into my pocket. They should probably talk to him before he destroys any more of my property. "Your property? Those were just your father's old paintings." "Those were original Moreau works, Mom. Dad was Moreau, the street artist, The one whose painting sold for $6 million at Sotheby's last year. The color drained from her face completely. That's impossible. I have the authentication papers. Had them for a month now. I tried to tell you, but you said I was being dramatic about Dad's hobby. She sank against the doorframe. How much? How much were they worth? The collection? About $4.2 million. Each painting was insured for its current market value. I walked past her, then paused. By the way, destruction of property valued over $100,000 is a felony in California. Just thought you should know before you go back downstairs. I could hear Marcus's voice from the backyard, loud and aggressive, demanding to know why police were at his house. Garrett's calm response carried through the window. Sir, I'm going to need you to step away from the fire and explain why you're destroying artwork valued at several $1,000,000. Millions? Marcus laughed. That garbage. It's worthless trash from my stepdaughter's dead father. Sir, I have authentication certificates here showing these paintings are original works by the artist Moreau, authenticated last month by the Langley Foundation and insured by Lloyd's of London. The owner, Jessica Morrow, filed a claim 45 minutes ago stating you were destroying them without permission. The silence that followed was beautiful. I made my way downstairs and out to the backyard, where Marcus stood frozen between the dying fire and 3 police officers. Garrett, a tall man in an expensive suit, was photographing the scene with professional equipment. Miss Morrow. He turned to me. Can you confirm these ashes are the remains of your father's paintings? Yes, I said clearly. Marcus Thompson destroyed all 23 paintings that were stored in the garage. I have video of him doing it, despite my repeated requests for him to stop. Marcus finally found his voice. This is bullshit. There's no way those paintings were worth millions. Her father was a nobody. Garrett pulled out his tablet, showing a news article from last year. The headline read, Anonymous Morrow painting sells for record $6 million at auction. David Morrow was Moreau, Garrett explained patiently. His daughter has provided DNA evidence from paint samples, handwriting analysis, and detailed provenance tracking. The authentication is irrefutable, and you, Mr. Thompson, have just destroyed $4 million worth of irreplaceable artwork. But she never, Elena. Marcus turned to my mother, who had come outside. Tell them those paintings were worthless. Mom looked at me, then at the police, then at the man she'd married. I didn't know. Jessica tried to tell me they were important, but I didn't listen. One of the officers stepped forward. Marcus Thompson, you're under arrest for felony destruction of property, grand theft, and vandalism. You have the right to remain silent. As they handcuffed him, Marcus kept screaming that it was his house, his rules, that I was lying, that this was all a setup. Technically, he was right about the last part. It was a setup, just not the way he thought. Garrett approached me as they led Marcus away. The insurance claim will be processed within 30 days. Given the clear documentation and the perpetrator's confession on video, I don't anticipate any issues with payment. Thank you, I said quietly. He studied me for a moment. You know, in 15 years of investigating insurance fraud, I've never seen someone document their own loss so thoroughly, almost like you knew this was going to happen. Marcus has been threatening to destroy those paintings for months. I had to be prepared. And moving them to a secure location never occurred to you. I met his eyes steadily. Where would a broke 18-year-old move 23 large paintings? I did the best I could with what I had. He nodded slowly. The storage unit in San Francisco. The one you visited 6 times in the last 2 months. My heart stopped. The one that happens to be climate controlled, perfect for storing artwork. He pulled out a different tablet, showing security footage of me carrying large wrapped canvases into a storage facility. The one registered under your grandmother's maiden name. I said nothing. Garrett put the tablet away and smiled. Fortunately, that storage unit isn't relevant to this case. These paintings, he gestured to the smoking fire pit, were destroyed. That's what I saw. That's what the video evidence shows. That's what Mr. Thompson confessed to doing. Whether those paintings were originals or copies, well, that would be almost impossible to prove now that they're ash. He handed me his business card. The claim will be processed for the full amount, $4.2 million. I suggest you use it wisely, perhaps to protect any other artwork you might have inherited. As he walked away, Mom stood beside me, staring at the dying fire. Jessica, tell me the truth. Were those the real paintings? I watched the last of the canvas turn to ash. Does it matter? Marcus believed they were real when he destroyed them. He intended to destroy millions of dollars of my property to hurt me. The fact that I was smart enough to protect my real inheritance doesn't change his crime. She was quiet for a long moment. Your father would be proud. He always said you were smarter than all of us combined. He also said to never let anyone burn your dreams. I turned to go inside. I need to call a lawyer about getting Marcus banned from the house. And Mom, you might want to call one about that prenup. I don't think destroying your stepdaughter's multi-million-dollar inheritance is going to look good in divorce court. 3 months later, I stood in a gallery in New York, watching people bid on one of my father's paintings. Well, Moreau's paintings. The world knew who he was now, and the 23 paintings I'd discovered in a storage unit after the insurance settlement made international news. The paintings sold for $8 million. Marcus was serving 3 years in prison. Mom had divorced him and was in therapy, finally dealing with the grief of losing my father that she tried to bury with a terrible rebound marriage. And me? I was using the insurance money to build an art school in my father's name. A place where young artists could learn that sometimes the best art isn't about fame or money. It's about creating something worth protecting, even if that means letting people think it's garbage until the moment they realize it's gold. Dad would have loved the irony. His paintings were finally worth millions, but only because everyone thought they'd been destroyed. The real art, he would have said, was in the deception itself. I kept one painting for myself, the Monterey Bay landscape. It hangs in my apartment now, a reminder that sometimes you have to let people burn fake dreams to protect the real ones. And sometimes, the best revenge is letting someone destroy exactly what they think they're destroying, while the truth sits safely in a storage unit in San Francisco, waiting for its moment to shine.